What was a visionary dream has now blossomed into the realization of a globally renowned medical device powerhouse. What evolved from a modest beginning now operate one of the most cutting-edge facilities in healthcare. What once was a single venture has now proliferated into a presence in 6 distinct domains. What began as a modest collection of products has flourished into a portfolio of over 250 products. What conceived in one country now operates in more than 158 countries. What started with a few individuals has burgeoned into a global team of 10,000 plus dedicated medtech professionals. And it underwent an evolution, experiencing substantial growth to emerge as a dedicated brand, poised to address the healthcare needs of this world. All of this made possible through by embracing modern innovations that enabled to win hearts of healthcare providers and patients across the globe. The progressive transformation of the infrastructure has seamlessly mirrored the pace of technological advancements, culminating in an unparalleled achievement of elevated output and precision in production, setting an extraordinary standard within its niche. We walk the extra mile while offering comprehensive range of medical solutions in the form of cardiovascular interventions. The collaborative effort to pinpoint unaddressed clinical needs in healthcare materialized thanks to the combined input of physicians and innovators from around the world. At the zenith of our journey, spanning more than a decade, we're dedicated to addressing some of the most challenging questions in contemporary medicine. We lead the way in innovation, processing through a continuous flow of scientific dialogue, and we're well prepared to meet the healthcare needs of the broader population. This is just the beginning. We are expanding to more exciting and futuristic medtech domains, establishing 35 plus Meril subsidiaries globally, expanding Meril Academy's footprint to 12 finest academies, enabling robust touchpoints with HCPs across the globe. 100-acre Meril campus with more than 1 million square feet dedicated to world-class manufacturing facilities. 15,000 passionate Merilians fueling these expansions. Join our cause and become an integral part of the remarkable revolution in enhancing the well-being of humanity and imparting purpose to lives. Where there is Meril, there is more to life.
Welcome to EuroPCR 2025. My name is Didier Cheche from Toulouse, and I have the great privilege to be joined today by Andreas Bombach from the UK and Christian Tilkerson from Denmark. So we're going to discuss, guys, together the latest data coming from the landmark and the COMPARE-TAVI trial. Very important piece of literature information that is going to impact our daily practice. Maybe I can start with you, Andreas, could you provide us an update on the landmark at 1 year?
Absolutely. Landmark 1 year, to remind us, Landmark is a randomized controlled trial that looks at new technology, MyVal and MyVal octa-core. This is a valve made in India that has as a unique point intermediate sizes, is a balloon expandable valve, and was put to the test against the contemporary valves, the Edwards Sapien series and the core valve or Medtronic self-expanding valve series. We published the 30-day results last year in the Lancet. That was the safety endpoint, and there was no difference between the groups. And now we have 12-month results, which look beginning to look at efficacy. And again, the comparison that we were presented is between 50% MyVal and on the other side the contemporary put together as a group. The basic result is the combined endpoint was at 13 and 13.1%, and all of the other individual parameters look pretty much the same. There is no difference in the outcome, which just says that this valve stands the test and is comparable to the devices we use.
So still it confirms the reassuring data that we had at 30 days. In terms of clinical outcomes, it seems to be similar. And Christian, on the COMPARE-TAVI trial, you have a slightly longer follow-up. And can you update us about the 3 years data that you just presented?
So the COMPARE-TAVI 1 trial was also a head-to-head comparison between MyVal series and Sapien series. It was 1,031 patients. Just last month we published the 1 year data in Lancet, showing that if you look at death, stroke, or aortic regurgitation or valve deterioration, there's no difference between the valves. But it happens that we initiated the study in 2020 and the last patient was included in 23. And in between we had a pause in enrollment for 1 year because of some patent-related disputes. But this means that in the first part of the study we randomized between Sapien and MyVal, whereas in the second part we randomized between Sapien and MyVal octa-core. And this means that the first part of the study have now crossed 3-year follow-up, and these data were presented yesterday. So it's 379 patients, actually 192 Sapien and 183 MyVal. And it shows that if you reanalyze the composite endpoint at 3 years, the same death, stroke, regurgitation and valve deterioration, there's no difference. So this reassures us that we have been safe treating patients with this new valve on the market. And to follow up on that, we also made a collaboration with the Landmark Steering Committee. So actually because they presented 1 year data also just yesterday, we pooled at the individual level data from both the Landmark and the COMPARE-TAVI, and then we reanalyzed the same composite endpoint. And if you combine these two studies, you now have more than 1,600 patients. And again, it shows that MyVal is non-inferior to Sapien regarding this composite endpoint.
And these are quite hard endpoints that are used in the vast majority of the randomized trials today. Andreas, are there any differences between the first generation MyVal and then the new generation that you have just mentioned, the octa-core?
I think there's no real noticeable difference in terms of the handling, and we're looking at yet another iteration coming up, the Octa Pro. But I do think there are some differences in the outcomes, and we will have the COMPARE-TAVI for that to look into that. I think that's the biggest data set.
And there was Christian. One thing that was quite striking and interesting in the first set of data that we had was the hemodynamics. That seems quite favorable to that platform for a balloon expandable platform. Other trials have demonstrated that when you use self-expanding valves, you have better hemodynamics as compared to balloon expandable valves. But it seems to be quite competitive in terms of hemodynamics with this new balloon expandable valve platform.
Yeah, so we analyzed both on COMPARE-TAVI-1 but also on the pooled data set. We analyzed the association between area measured by CT and then the effective orifice area measured by echo. And for every area you can see that you achieve a larger effective orifice area with the MyValve compared to the SAPIEN. So it must be something with either the construction, the suturing, or maybe even the leaflets, but consistently you see for all sizes that you achieve a higher effective orifice area. Whether this translates into durability, we don't know yet, but we will have to follow them. And we, as in the landmark both studies, will follow the patients for 10 years. So it would be interesting to see if these differences translate into differences in durability. But we have no data on that yet.
So durability is one of the issues. So Christian said 10 years follow-up of the landmark trial. So do you think that we're going to see a meaningful impact of these hemodynamic differences at one specific time point?
Well, I think these hemodynamic differences, they are there. They're there for a reason. There's an engineering explanation, and I think the Resilia has now caught up with that and achieves similar hemodynamic results. That's on that topic. In terms of longevity and benefits of all these design aspects, including the intermediate sizes that ensure that the valve is perfectly implanted to size and works at an optimal level, I would expect that to show in terms of valve durability at 5 to 10 years, not acutely.
So what I learned today from you guys is the clinical equipoise in terms of this new balloon expandable TAVI platform as compared to the most commercially utilized devices that we use in daily practice in terms of very strong hard endpoints. With reassuring data at 3 years in terms of follow-up and clinical impact, and we need to wait for 10 years to see if there could be a difference based on the hemodynamic performance of that platform. So thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you very much, Christian. It was a very nice discussion, and I hope that you enjoy, and I wish you the best for the rest of the day.
Welcome to PCR London Valves 2024. My name is Dr. Ashok Seth from New Delhi, India, and I have the pleasure today to be with Professor Patrick Sorais from Galway, Ireland.
Good.
Professor Sorais, you well know, is an avid researcher, a leader for a long time, known him for ages, and of course more recently he's been the chairman of important trials which were presented at the PCR London Valves.
Yeah, that's correct. Ashok, two important trials. The first is the landmark trial. As a matter of fact, the primary endpoint was already reported at PCR, but in Paris, and published in the Lancet. What we did here is that initially that was the technology from India, the so-called MyValve series, versus the SAPIEN series and the Evolute series. But it was pulled together. It was a combined contemporary golden standard technology from India versus these two. And already at that time we showed non-inferiority. But here in London we have shown the comparison individually versus the SAPIEN series and versus the Evolute series. And the news is good in the sense that versus the Evolute self-expanding, there was a difference of 5.1%. We were aiming just at non-inferiority achieved, and also versus the SAPIEN series with a minimal difference of 0.6%. So that's great news for that technology. The second important communication here in London was COMPARE-TAVI. COMPARE-TAVI was an investigator-initiated trial, and they had more than 1,000 patients. and they were specifically the MyValve series versus the Sapien series. The trial was for some time interrupted, so they moved from the first iteration to the second iteration, and they come with unbelievable result. So it's very important. I mean, I've been impressed by the technology coming from India.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. You see me smiling because I feel so proud that you talk about this technology. But yes, I think it was important also to point out that Landmark was a 30-day data of non-inferiority,
Yeah.
and now we have a year data of non-inferiority,
yeah.
and I think that's really
Very
a
important,
robust
yeah.
aspect of.
On your side, I would like to ask you a question, because we see that technology evolving quite rapidly. I mean, I've been used to change in technology, but the pace, which is the pace actually of iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, is impressive. Can you comment on that? Because you are a user, a customer, you know how to do it, and you have seen the technology in your hand.
Yes, Patrick, and been a part of it. Yes. One of the interesting aspects of this valve, of course, as we iterate it, is still the fact that we have a variety of sizes to fit every anatomy. 9 sizes with the extra large size. I think that's a unique feature, I would say.
Yeah, I was talking about the clinical outcome, and you're right by saying it's 30 days and 1 year. But I think that the intermediate size, as we said, make the life of the operator easy. He can really select the fitted valve for the anatomy.
Right.
And we have created that fitting index, and it's clear that when the things are fitting properly, the results are superior. So we were very surprised to see a better effective orifice area opening of the valve with the technology coming from India versus the classical gold standard of Sapien.
Yeah.
And the gradient was also lower. So that's really a great point in terms of hemodynamic, the question, the impact of the long-term durability.
You're absolutely right, and therefore the iteration now has to focus on a lifetime management of our patients, and therefore 2 things come important in our mind in terms of iterations. The ones which we're working on, OctaPro, for example, ability to align the valve, commissural alignment is an important aspect in our minds for every patient that we treat.
Yeah,
now.
I think it was a great idea to do the alignment outside the patient and then introduce the device and have the alignment inside the patient without depending on fluoroscopy in the first place, although you can control that you have done the right alignment. So the alignment is also part of our history now. I mean, everybody do that, and it's very important, of course.
And so OctaCore has been now tested in a way, should we say, in Compertavi, and the next iteration, of course, has to be on precise placement of the valve, what we call decreasing the foreshortening. And I think this move to OctaPro, which was launched here, and we had a great session around the OctaPro, is a move forwards. I mean, isn't it fascinating for a valve to only shorten by 10% and not visibly shorten on fluoroscopy, enabling precise, perfect deployment of a valve, accurate deployment of a valve, position it where you want, and then just to deploy it in a short frame, thereby having coronary access for the future. And
you know, in the attendance of PCR London, you have, of course, people have a long experience with that technology, but there are still people who have to start. And I got a question just coming out of the session. Is that the valve I should use to start? I found that a very good question. So I think that we have achieved our goal by exposing in trial and in technology what is achievable today and what is available today.
Yeah, and I think these results are resilient, they are robust, and I think they truly serve as a testament to science, serve as a testament to innovation, and serve a testament to patient outcomes in a very scientifically robust manner which stands the scrutiny of science, I would say. And I think finally, one says these iterations, the developments of science need to continue out from India and out from these companies who really are looking to prove that they can have a valve which is now competitive in the present atmosphere for the patients, and we have a choice now.
It's for the benefit of the patient, and we are there to stimulate that so that the progress never stops. in the industrial partner, with our industrial partner.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. It's great to talk about this, the two trials. It's great to talk about the MyValve transcatheter heart valve series and the iterations of OctaPro and the way this is going. Our goals of lifetime management of a patient who has TAVI need to be met with future innovations and novel ideas. Thank you very much, Patrick, for being a part of great science and great research.
Welcome from PCR London Valve. I'm Patrick Serreus, and I'm here with Andreas Baumbach, Professor of Cardiology in Queen Mary, and then Chris Terkelson, Professor of Cardiology in Iris. And we have to discuss the concept of intermediate size of valve and extra large. And obviously, we have Meril Life has introduced a new valve, the octa-core, and is very present in London Valve. But we are going to talk about what has been published on the previous valve. So the first question is for Andreas. Why intermediate size is something important? Was that an unmet need for the community?
Well, I do believe that it was an unmet need, and it's not really intermediate size, it's appropriate sizing. So the more we can adjust the valve size to the actual patient size, the less we will see embolization, rupture, the less we will see paravalvular leak, and we will get the optimal hemodynamic outcome.
Okay, so the mismatch. I remember one balloon expandable embolizing in the left ventricle, and I could remember we put an in-way balloon, catch the distal, inflate the distal, bring it back in the aorta and make the employment. So when we talk about, Chris, when we talk about different size, are we talking different balloon in the device, or is that something drastically different?
No, it's actually rather unique. So from Meril, they have provided us with 9 different sizes, and it's unique stent frames for all sizes. So it's not the balloon, but the stent frame that changed by 1.5 millimeters. So you can actually also, in these intermediate sizes, choose the appropriate size.
So basically, in the manufacture, they are cutting in balloon
in different
sizes. So that's a huge inventory in slide and manufacturing process.
Yes.
Remarkable. So, Andreas, can you remind us what was the step in valve for the surgeon, for other technology, and what is the major step forward here?
Yeah, so here we've got 1.5 millimeter. The standard valve iterations or sizing for transcatheter valves is 3 millimeter.
Yeah.
So that's double that. The surgeons, they work on 2 millimeter differences.
Right. And I think that if you look at the millimeter square, okay, the large will be 700 to 860, but I think it's interesting that there is always some kind of overlap, so you can eventually play a little bit on the downsize of upsize. That's very good. Now, Chris, you have the responsibility to summarize a little bit the published data. What is the incidence of use of that intermediate size?
So previous publications indicate that if you have the possibility to choose intermediate sizes, you would probably choose it in around 40% of cases. And from our own experience, we have implanted more than 600 valves from MyValve and octa-core in Western Denmark. So when you have the possibility, we actually choose intermediate sizing in 1 out of 3 patients. So in a situation where with a 23 you would undersize and with a 26 you would heavily oversize and there's maybe a risk of annulus rupture, you have the possibility to choose an intermediate size, and this you will do, from our experience, in 1 out of 3.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that the paper we published with Kawashima was 2021. We look in 26 countries in Europe. We had something like 11, 25 patients, and the incidence at that time in 2021 was already 42%.
Yes.
So it confirmed what you do in your institution. If you look the connection with the bicuspid, is there anything you could say? I remember in that paper that with the bicuspid there was also some nice interaction between intermediates. Anything you would like to say on that, or that you know?
I think from our clinical experience, we tend, of course, to not oversize so heavily with the bicuspid. So there could be several cases where you wanted this intermediate sizing for the bicuspid to avoid the risk of rupture also.
And the presence of calcium, asymmetric calcium, is that also playing in your choice of intermediate?
Certainly. I mean, there's a risk that you won't expand the stent properly if you take the larger size and if you take the volume out. So in these cases, we would certainly also choose an intermediate if that was the appropriate sizing, yes.
So it's a reality, it's used in
Yes.
42% of the patient. Andreas, do we have any sign of clue of indices showing that it will improve the clinical outcome?
Well, we don't have hard data yet, but there is a wealth of data coming in from 2 randomized trials to compare, and the landmark trial, which will complete enrollment of nearly 800 patients fairly soon. And there we will not only have the outcomes of these patients, but also compare the outcomes to the standard sizing with 3 millimeter iterations.
So when is this data going to be released, you think?
Well, we hope that we will be presenting the landmark data at EuroPCR.
Oh, God, that's good news. I mean, a new appointment of meeting where we will hear this information. Let's finish on the extra large size, 30.5 and 32. Anything that you would like to say? I remember a paper of Alzheimer with a short series of only 10 Ks, by the way.
Yeah.
But what would you say about this extra large, maybe your experience?
I think we all have seen patients where we cannot treat them with the previous commercially available valves. And there's a nice paper by Andreas Holzhammer from Regensburg where he looked into more than 2,000 previous TAVI cases. And he could actually see that in more than 2% of cases, the patients could not be treated with the previous available valves. I think this is different from country to country. So our own experience is probably the same. Around 2% of patients we need the XL sizes, so the 30.5 and the 32. And in some countries it may even be higher. There are rumors that in Netherlands it's even larger anatomy. So we now have a valve where we can treat patients that were previously denied for TAVI.
Right. So you mentioned the experience of, I think, the University of Regensburg.
Yes.
But I think that in the technology of Medtronic and Edwards, they mention also 1.7, 2.8% of valve annulus, which is beyond what they can offer. Very good. So the last question is maybe for Andreas. What about what kind of data are we going to get, and how soon we are going to get data on these extra large?
It's early days, but there's definitely a need, and people are requesting the valve and implanting it. We have a nested registry in the landmark trial, and the registry will continue. So we are at 31 patients out of 100 planned. We might exceed the 100, but once we come to that point, we will release data and show acute and follow-up outcomes.
A lot to see, a lot to hear in the near future. I thank you both, gentlemen. That was to the point of these two new developments in the field, which are quite unique, we have to say. Thank you very much. Back to the studio.